Hola amigos. Today I'm going to be walking you through why your body still looks average despite you training. Maybe you're even watching your diet or making better food choices, or I don't know, you're just putting in the effort and you don't feel like you're quite getting the results that you'd like to be seeing. Your body just still looks kind of average. First of all, it's probably useful if we quickly define what we actually mean by looking average. It's not a dig at anyone who looks average or wants to look average. I don't even really like the term average, but we're using it now. Basically, we're referring to a lack of muscle mass, a lack of overall shape, and probably a little bit more body fat than what we would be happy with. So now that we know that, let's just jump straight in. Let's have a look at what is potentially the cause. Number one is going to be technique. And I don't mean technique in the traditional sense when we're talking about exercise form, like having good technique. Obviously, you want to have good technique. We're talking about technique that is conducive to muscle growth specifically, because there's a big difference. Now, I'm not going to get into it for this video because it's a different video in itself, but there's a difference between the technique for certain exercises that we're going to be using if the goal was strength or if it was muscle growth. For muscle growth specifically, we want to be emphasizing things like a deep range of motion, so a really good stretch on the specific muscle, potentially even pausing at the bottom of each rep when we are exerting that tension on the muscle in that lengthened position. And then I'd even go as far as to say, for a lot of exercises, missing out on that locking out part at the top. So if you're doing something like, let's say, a chest press, when you get to the top, rather than locking your elbow out at the top, actually keeping that little bend in there so we're maintaining consistent tension on the pec throughout the duration of the set. And then we're maximizing this deep position back here with a big pause, big stretch, lots of tension, and then pressing through really forcefully. A lot of people you'll see doing things like this, where they just go, they've got too much weight on there, they're locking out the top, they're spending all the time up here. When my elbow's locked at the top, the amount of tension being exerted on my pec isn't that much at all. So we don't want to be spending most of the time up here, we want to be spending most of the time down here. Okay, technique, let's fix that, that's out the way. Number two, volume. What do I mean by volume? Volume in this context is sets per muscle group per week. So for example, if I was to do 4 sets of press ups on Monday for my chest, and then I was going to do 4 sets of incline dumbbell press on Thursday for my chest, then I've got 8 cumulative sets over the course of the week for my chest. Now, it may be that you just don't have enough volume in there, or you weren't even thinking about it when you were constructing your plan. Now you will. It is hard to give guidelines on this because it is very contextual, but I'm going to give you some rough guidelines. For most of you, if you're somewhere between 8 and 20 sets per muscle group per week, that's a good place to be. I know that's quite a wide range. Now, you have to be careful with how you manage volume, because we're always managing stimulus and fatigue. You're not going to be able to hit every single muscle group of your body with 20 sets of work, because it's just you're going to build up too much systemic fatigue. Instead, I'd pick 3 muscle groups that you're pretty happy with and you think, actually, these are pretty good, and then put them towards the bottom end of that range. And then you can pick 3 muscle groups that you think, actually, these could really do us some work. Then you can put them towards the top end of that range, and then anything else is going to lie somewhere in the middle. Boom, volume, tick. Number 3 is intensity. It always comes down to intensity. We always end up talking about this. When it comes to muscle growth, one of the most important things is going to be this proximity to failure. And that is not to say that you have to push to failure on every single set, but we certainly want to be getting close. If you're about 0 to 3 reps in reserve, so reps shy of failure, that's a really good place to be. Sorry, I've got a really dry throat at the moment. Where did I get to? I completely lost my train of thought. Intensity. So with intensity as well, if we are measuring it based on reps in reserve, so we're going from 0 to 3, then obviously how are we going to accurately measure that if we don't know where our actual limit of failure is? So I would definitely recommend taking a few exercises to failure, a few sets to failure. On, say, either smaller muscle groups, like if you're doing specific like arm training, isolation, accessories, potentially even compound exercises on machines. I wouldn't do it all that often, but every now and again is definitely good, just so you have that accurate measurement in terms of your RIR, your reps in reserve. Intensity, again, check. And the last one here we have is energy, and by energy I mean energy balance, so calories in and calories out. Why is this going to make a difference when it comes to body composition? This is the biggest thing when it comes to body composition, because this is what's directly responsible for if you gain or lose weight. Now, based on what we've said here, is that you're looking average at the moment, so that means that we've got too much body fat. So what do we need to do in terms of our energy balance? We need to be in a negative energy balance. We need to be in an energy deficit, a calorie deficit. You need to be burning more calories per day than you are consuming through your food. Now, you may be asking, okay, well, how do I do that? Because it's easy saying that, but how do you actually put that into practice, this calorie deficit that everyone always talks about? The way I do it is through something I call the data-driven method, which is way more fancy than it actually is. Basically, what I do for myself and for my clients is we use a weekly weigh-in average. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning, for example, you would wake up, you'd hop on the scales, and you'd make a note of what your weight was. For those of you who use Stone, by the way, and you're using Imperial, using metric is way, way, way easier for this. So use your kilograms on your digital scales. Then on that third and final weigh-in of the week, you're going to add all of them up and divide them by 3 because there's 3 of them, and that gives you a weekly average weight. This is going to be something that you repeat every single week because what we're doing here is we're collecting data. I cannot stress enough that we are not looking for weight loss from Monday to Wednesday, Wednesday to Friday. It's not about that at all. But your body weight is going to fluctuate day to day for a number of different reasons. And therefore, we want to calculate something that's a little bit more of an accurate understanding of your current body mass. Now, as you lose body fat, as you're in this calorie deficit, your net body weight is going to decrease. That's why weight loss is just synonymous with fat loss. So then as the weeks go by and we're tracking your average weight, we're looking for a decrease on your average. Sometimes it takes a couple of weeks before it starts to kick in, so you've got to give it a few weeks at least. But after, say, 3 or 4 weeks, if we've noticed that your average weight is just staying the same, what that tells us for certain is that you are at energy maintenance. The amount of calories you're consuming via your food is matching that of what you're exerting via your exercise, your day-to-day activity, and your BMR. But this is why this system is brilliant, because we've removed the guesswork. We now know that you're at energy maintenance. You're not gaining weight, you're maintaining, and therefore to tip the scales becomes actually quite straightforward. We have 2 variables we can manipulate here, your calorie intake and your calorie expenditure. And we're going to track them via just calorie counting, tracking your food, and then tracking your steps, because they tend to be just the easiest ways. Over the course of the week, you start tracking what you're eating. It's not that you're necessarily hitting a target, you're just tracking the food that you are eating. Let's say after the week, you've worked out that you're eating roughly 2,000 calories a day, and you've worked out that you're hitting roughly 5,000 steps a day. We know that at roughly 2,000 calories a day and 5,000 steps a day, you are maintaining your body weight. So how do we change that? Well, we just simply decrease this to say 1,900 calories a day, and we increase this to say 6,000 steps a day, and then we retrack, we reassess. We retrack, we reassess, I think is what I was going for there. And we're just constantly comparing that weekly average to the previous week to see if we've got the rate of decrease in net body weight that we're looking for, which is going to be roughly about 1% of your current body weight. And as you do this, you should start to see your average weight starting to decrease as the weeks go on. And if it doesn't, you just simply come back and you rinse and repeat this entire system. I've got another video on this channel running you through it with an example using myself. And then you don't have to have a certain weight goal in mind, you're just simply bringing it down and maybe taking some transformation pictures, some tracking photos, as you go as well over the course of the weeks, because then we've got something visually that we can compare. And basically you're just looking for a weight that you're happy with the visual results. So once you hit a point where you're like, okay, I'm looking in the mirror and I'm happy with how lean I am, maybe you're starting to see some abs or a bit more of a toned stomach, something like that. And then you go, okay, right, I'm happy at this weight. It doesn't have to be about a specific weight goal. We're just using the weight to understand and track something so we have some kind of measurable outcome so that we can see if what we're doing is helping us in the right direction. And that's it. That's your 4 things. 4 things that you can fix. And honestly, if you are just stuck looking average, you've been training for a while and you are doing what you think is most of the right stuff, I can guarantee it's one of these 4 that's currently holding you back. So try all of them, fix all of them, and I promise you'll be sorted. You'll be on your way. As usual, guys, any questions, any suggestions for future videos, please feel free, drop me a comment down below. And if this helped you out, you can always leave it a like as well. And on that note, I will catch you in the next one. And subscribe as well. Sorry, I keep forgetting that bit. Still quite new to this YouTube thing. So subscribe as well if you're new and if you like. And yeah, I will actually catch you in the next one now. Bye.